What's up, comrades? It's me, Nightwolf, and welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to a brand new video. I hope everybody is having a good day. I'd also like to thank anybody for being here, basically. This is an interesting kind of topic. It'll be probably very random because I don't have all my thoughts together, but I mentioned this a couple months back that I was pretty much giving up, or, well, not giving up, but selling my comic book collection because I have different objectives and goals in my life now. And also that I was kind of stopping buying a majority of comic books. And I kind of felt like elaborating on it because there's been a lot of stuff going on in recent months and whatnot that have to do with the comic book industry, that has to do with the discussion around comic books. And I kind of wanted to give my take on some of it and explain basically why I'm giving up this hobby. Now, let me kind of at least say that it's kind of broad me saying this, but what I mean by giving up comic books, I'm mostly referring to the fact that I'm not going to be like buying comics monthly anymore. I'm not going to do that. I think it's a waste of money and a waste of your time and energy at this point. At least for me, it is. The more important aspect of it, I think, is that I don't enjoy that hobby as much as I used to. And there's a multitude of reasons, and I'll probably cover them in the video as best I can. One of the things, and I'm going to actually at least clarify a bit, I'm probably going to still be buying, on occasion, I'll still buy some comics. In particularly independent books or books that I find interesting, some from smaller publishers and the more independent books. And also, I'm probably also going to look more into other stuff like pulp magazines or pulp stories as well, because a lot of them have a lot of superheroes in it too, and a lot of those are really good stories. So I want to kind of dive into that stuff. It's an older form of entertainment, but I do genuinely want to read that stuff because we kind of need it at this point. So, how do I put this? There's so many things that are currently wrong within comic books, and more importantly, what is wrong within the comic book industry as a whole, especially from the big two. Because of those issues and shortcomings, it's really hard to maintain any form of excitement. I basically, some people, say like, why does everybody hate these comics? Why is everybody fighting against these comics or trying their best to, suck the fun out of it? And for me, I just have indifference to it. I just do not care anymore. I do not care enough, or at all, about what Marvel or DC does to their comic book publishing line at this point. I just don't care. Not nearly as much as you would think I should. And you should probably stop caring about it too, because they don't care. Allow me to kind of elaborate on that, because I've seen a lot of people basically trying to excuse this type of stuff. They excuse the behavior more so than anything. And I find that really annoying because they don't care. Some of the more recent stuff is the fact that they're talking about killing Superman. Again, probably for the 20th or 30th time. To correspond with the 30th anniversary of the death of Superman story. Which is an okay story. It's pretty good. It's not the greatest, but it's fine. I don't think it's the most groundbreaking story ever. I just think it's okay. More important thing is that they don't care anymore about what they're writing or what they're doing. This is kind of just a habit of theirs. Rehashing old ideas is probably one of the biggest reasons why I get sick and tired of their comic books. Now, you could take characters or concepts that were worked on in previous books and try and expand on them, but a good chunk of what they're doing are lazy homages or just retellings of the same story they've already done before, just with a different coat of paint. None of it is original. None of it is unique. It's tiring. The events are tiring. This is tiring. There is no logical reason why anyone should be invested in the stories, because the creators don't put enough care. A lot of them don't put enough care into it. A lot of people with this, death of Superman thing. Philip Kennedy Johnson says to, who's the current writer for Superman, I guess, or for at least for Clark Kent. He's saying, trust me, and it'll all work out. I love this character. Don't think I don't. Now, I've said this in some people's comment sections, because this is what I firmly believe. I don't doubt that he has some level of sincerity in loving Superman. It kind of shows from what I've seen from some of his writing. Philip Kennedy Johnson seems to genuinely love Clark Kent. He loves the character and he loves the family, which is good. The thing that a lot of people, especially within comic book commentary that I listen to, fail to talk about is editorial mandates. A lot of the decisions that are made in comic books, at least a good chunk of them, are editorial mandates. And there's sometimes they can be a decent thing or an okay thing. But more times than often, especially in more modern books, it is a detriment to the comic books as a whole. Here's a good example. Everybody loves One More Day. And by that, you know what I mean. One More Day was a terrible story, but it was also editorial mandate. We can't put all of the fault and all of the blame on Straczynski, because he didn't want to write the story either. Now, I'm not saying Straczynski is the best writer ever, but I'm just pointing this out. This was not in his original plans. It was heavily re-edited in order to make a different story that the current editor-in-chief at the time, Joe Quesada, wanted. So, because all of these sweeping changes that they're currently making to Superman seems to be deliberate. And not only deliberate, but it seems to be with the intent to change the status quo, which is a lazy habit that comic book writers and artists and editors have at this current point. That's tiring and has gotten old really fast, and I've gotten sick of it. But more importantly than that, it's the fact that no matter this concept and idea that the editors don't have any say in what happens currently to Clark Kent and Superman is ridiculous. Superman is going to die. At least in some form or fashion. He's either going to die, as some people are suggesting, or his other alternative option is that what's going to happen is he's going to be depowered. Because he's already depowered. And he's on Warworld to fight Mongol, which will probably end with either his death or him being so battered and bruised that he will never be Superman again. This type of story could work. And Philip Kennedy Johnson might write a fantastic story, a fun adventure on Warworld. But it's going to end. And eventually when it ends, it'll be the same cycle all over again. Superman will probably die or be depowered, and then when the sales for the current new hip Superman, Jon Kent, son of Kal-El, starts to go down the frickin' toilet, even more so than it already has, they're going to bring him back. It's a cycle. It's a habit. Comic books are, in some cases, can be an addiction, and it used to be a healthy way of, enjoying storytelling and whatnot, and it can be a good hobby, and it still is for many people, but it's not what it used to be anymore. None of it is the way that it should be. None of it has adapted to the times or grown, and it's just a sad state of comic books. No matter what people can try and put makeup on the pig, it's still a pig. One of the other issues I have is the fact that here's just more evidence that the companies do not care. Their hiring practices. Recently, that was announced that Danny Rand, Iron Fist, is no longer going to be Iron Fist. Which is like, okay, we've seen this type of story before where the character decides to kind of give up and, maybe they'll come back in a couple issues or so. Or eventually, they'll come back as Iron Fist because, everybody wants to see the original characters. Now, one of the things that happened is that the current writer for a miniseries for the new Iron Fist, the person who's taking up the mantle after Danny, has said some disparaging and horrible things about Marvel Comics. She has accused her current boss and editor-in-chief, C.B. Cebulski, of being a racist. And on top of that, she's also insulted Stan Lee as well, calling him a racist. Now, everybody who knows comic books or is worth their salt in comics knows that's not true at all. Under any circumstances is any of that legitimate or true. We all know it's false. We all know it's crap. She got the job. She got a job at Marvel. A lot of the writers and artists hate the legacy that they've been given. This is not like it was back in the day when Denny O'Neil was in interviews talking about the fact that they were caretakers and stewards of a legacy. That they genuinely were basically given the keys to the kingdom to continue to build upon what was already founded and continue the prosperity of the comic books that everybody loves so much. That's not the case anymore. The editors do not do that anymore. The writers don't do that. The people who are hiring aren't doing it because they're hiring mediocre or hack writers to write to begin with. And if it's not that, they are more focused or interested in their politics, their own personal opinions on how the world should work, and genuinely seem to have a disdain for the companies that they work for. Now, I don't know about you guys, but for me personally, that's a sign that it's time to go. It's time to leave. It's time to abandon the comic book industry, at least the big two. It's time to abandon the big two because if they don't care, why should you care? I love a lot of these characters. I love Spider-Man. I love Batman. I love Superman. I love a lot of characters. But that love is that love's never going to go away. It's still there. It's still in my heart. But if their heart's not in it, it'll show. And it continues to show through sales. The amount of books that, like just the Superman Son of Kal-El is just a prime example of this. Just from 2 issues, you can see the decline. The second issue of Son of Kal-El is at 58 on the top 100. And he's basically the mainline Superman book. It's the book that has the title, Superman. I've had people have conversations with me already saying like, oh, well, Superman is still there. He's like, yeah, in side books or in Action Comics or in a miniseries. We've got Clark Kent, which is fine. And it's fine if you want to make Jon the Superman of Earth and the mainline Superman. I have no issue with that. But you picked a writer that was probably not qualified to write him. This isn't about them making him bisexual, though that's an issue that we could probably talk about. Mainly for me, just as a slight tangent, the sexuality of characters is, to me, just these comic book writers' excuse so that they can ship characters with whoever they want. They're shippers. Basically, a lot of these writers nowadays just don't seem to genuinely care about continuity. They don't care about the characters' long-standing histories. Jon's is not that long, so you might be able to explore this bisexuality thing. That's fine. But when you did it to Tim Drake, that was like, okay, where the heck did that come from? That seems to be a bit strange, and there's not a whole lot of ground for it. I thought that was a dumb idea, and it's also not important. It's boring. I can leave a link to a video that Razor Fist, has put in, that the book for this particular Superman story, it's boring. It's not that it's that nobody cares. It's boring. He's talking, most of the books seem to be heavily focused on political issues like climate change and what's the other one that I'm trying to think of? I'm drawing a frickin' blank. Come on, brain, work with me. Immigration. That's the one. Immigration. Now, those topics can be tackled and touched upon. That's fine. But to me, it seems to be very forced in. This Superman has barely been established. He hasn't had a whole lot of time to grow as a character. Hell, as a Superman, he's kind of bad at it. He doesn't even understand all the hard work that his dad puts into things. He comes off as whiny, entitled, self-indulgent, and that's not very heroic. It's not heroic at all. It's just not. And while these issues might be interesting or might be important in the real world, in a comic book setting, it's kind of stupid and makes no sense. Climate change is not something that could be that. If you're going to take that and use that in a comic book setting, especially for DC Comics, you're going to have to be very specific and careful with that, because it's just idiotic. There are so many ways that problem or issue can be fixed, because DC Comics is not the real world. It is a fictional world with characters with massive superpowers, with planets that inhabit other life forms. So when characters hold up a sign like, we only have one planet, there's no planet B, you have an entire multiverse of Earths and other planets to inhabit. Are you kidding me? That's ridiculous. Comic books are supposed to be about fun, about actions, about the true heroic spirit that humans can exhibit. And that's not what these comics are anymore. They're not. I'm sorry. If you seem to think differently, that's fine, but I don't see it. I'm not going to continue to give my money to companies who have a disregard for the fan base, who do not care about who they hire, no matter what their history or background is, when it comes to how they behave toward the company, who don't care about their legacy, who want to completely reshape and re-alter the legacy to fit what they want and not what the fan base wants. It's not the right place to be. It's not healthy for you to keep on going to the same place over and over again to be constantly berated and mistreated. There are other alternatives out there with people who genuinely have more interest in superheroics than what Marvel and DC currently do. Kind of talking about that, actually, is kind of what I'm thinking. Some of the recent stuff with Superman was the removal of truth, justice, and the American way. Now, I'm pointing this out because it just kind of just shows, I think, more of my mindset currently when it comes to comics. That shows kind of what Superman is. Now it's truth, justice, and a better world or a better tomorrow. It's stupid in the sense that something that has been a part of Superman's iconography for so long, maybe it wasn't there at the beginning, but it's been there for decades, and it's like, okay, it's time to remove it. It's time to get rid of it. We don't need it. My kind of counter argument to that is like, what if, hypothetically, Marvel decided to remove one of the most iconic pieces of basically the thing that shaped a character. Spider-Man's iconic, with great power comes great responsibility. Now, this is not something that Spider-Man said outright originally in Amazing Fantasy. This was something that Stan wrote in as kind of a narrator, but it has been a part of Spider-Man. Now, let's say I'm Marvel and I decide to completely remove it. You know, change its meaning, change what it means, change what it says. Like, with great power comes, I don't know, great something else. I'm kind of at a loss because my mind's all over the place. Someone can fill it in, and fill in the blank yourself. With great power comes great socialism. I don't know. They could write down anything, but taking that away from him would probably be the biggest mistake ever, because it ruins his characterization of he doesn't need to worry about his power and his responsibility anymore, because it's like, who needs that stuff? We're not responsible adults. We don't have lives to live and have general need to, do better and to be better, to have a responsibility to the people who we live with, the people we care for, the people we love. Nah, who needs that? We don't need that. That's not important. Because Marvel could do something like that. I wouldn't put it past them at this point. So when you say that Superman's, it's like, oh, it don't matter because that was just something that they did for World War II. No, I still think it's relevant. I still think it's an important factor of the character, and it has been a part of his character for ages now. It's in the cultural zeitgeist. At this point, removing it seems to be a terrible idea. That would be the same as if they said, oh, hey, let's just remove the S on his chest and whatnot. Who needs that? It's not important. It's like taking him away from something like Kansas. Like, hey, let's rewrite his history and whatnot and say he was born and raised in Metropolis instead by a hipster family. You get my point? I hope some of you guys get the point, is that it's a bad idea. It's a poor direction. And I don't think that it benefits the character at all. So, like, I could put up, here's this, I'll put up a picture of this motto from the character of Doc Savage, who's basically the better Superman. If I'm being completely fair, and also the character that was basically Superman before Superman was Superman. When you read that quote, when you read that motto, you know who this character is and what he represents and what he stands for. Let me see. Okay, here it is. Let me read it. Let me strive every moment of my life to make myself better and better, to the best of my ability, so that all may profit by it. Let me think of the right, and lend all my assistance to those who need it, with no regard for anything but justice. Let me take what comes with a smile, without loss of courage. Let me be considerate of my country, of my fellow citizens, and my associates in everything I say and do. Let me do right to all, and wrong no man. Now tell me, when you read that, when you see that, when someone says that, you kind of get the feeling of what kind of man they are. You can't really do that with current modern comics a lot, because there's a strong sense of nihilism in the comics. There's a constant need to either modernize or deconstruct them, to make them morally gray or morally ambiguous, to not stand for what they should stand for. And it's especially damaging for a company like DC, because their comic book characters are supposed to be paragons. They're supposed to be the best that humanity can offer. Marvel can have characters with more moral ambiguity. They can do that because that's what their world is kind of based on, the world outside your window, because people are complicated. But with characters like Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, and others, they're supposed to be a paragon. They're supposed to be basically above what a normal human can be capable of. We're supposed to strive to be like them to the best of our abilities. We're not supposed to just say like, oh, well, this kind of sucks. They're too good. They're too powerful. They're too righteous and right. It was like, well, we got to change that. We got to remove that and make them morally ambiguous. We have to remove their morality, change them, tweak them so that they fit more of our current modern sensibilities. And it's a terrible idea. I think that one of my favorite Superman stories is Superman versus the Elite. For this very reason. You took a group of characters, the elites, a group of nihilistic individuals who have a twisted worldview, and basically having the entirety of society, or the bulk of society, in agreement with them, saying that Superman is old, he's outdated, his ideals don't matter. We need to perform a new form of justice by killing. And Superman shows exactly why he doesn't do that. I'm pretty sure some of you are familiar with the panels, you're familiar with the scenes from the animated film, and it shows what Superman is, who he is, that he shouldn't bend to the will of others. He shouldn't change his philosophy just because it would be more convenient for him. He shouldn't do that. Instead, he should strive to be the person that he's always been. That's how you write good storytelling. You're talking about challenging the characters' beliefs, challenging their worldview, and making it harder for them to function and operate. That's good storytelling. That's compelling writing. And several other characters from other forms of entertainment and media have done the same thing. You talk about characters like a Doc Savage or the Shadow or somebody else from the pulps, and they do the same thing. Where you have characters challenging their morality, challenging what they stand for, but them still, at the end of the day, not bending to it. The problem is that a lot of comic book characters now are weak. They're mentally weak. Their fortitudes are rocked and messed with constantly. Batman has gone from being someone who has a strong moral code to sometimes being portrayed as, well, paranoid and insane. There's been several comics that indicate him being too paranoid and untrusting of others. I know he's a loner, and that's fine, but him being overly paranoid and being willing to potentially harm his own closest friends, it's kind of messed up. Spying on everybody. It's a lack of morality. And it happens in so many comic book characters now. The lack of that morality, the lack of true heroism, of doing what's right, doing the right thing, helping people. How many comic books have we gotten in more recent years where the heroes are fighting more of each other than fighting actual villains? I mean, you guys know the answer to that. You see it all the time. This is the truth. This is cold, hard truth. There's a lack of morality. There's an increase in nihilism and deconstruction of characters instead of trying to build them up, to make them better, to try and fix the issues that have been caused. Why should anybody buy their comic books? You guys want heroism. It's clear you want heroism. And you're not going to get a lot of that from a lot of the comic books that come out from Marvel and DC. You have writers that proactively hate their audience, who hate the legacy, who we've touched on and talked about on this channel before. There is no point to doing this. There is no benefit to continuing to support them. Because, like I've been showing, or what I've been pointing out, it's a cycle. They're not going to change. They can't change. At least that's my current view on it. They don't seem to want to change. They want to be stuck in their old habits. The endless cycle of bad events, bad writing, bad art, and that only being increasing in number. They don't want to write characters the way that they should be written. They want to write their own things. Of course, there's also things like some people just thinking that they're writing only the bare minimum, basically. They're not bringing their A game. They're bringing in basically ideas and thoughts that they thought were the ones that they could just get away with throwing on the page and not putting any effort into. We need to change the culture of comic books. And I don't mean by creating a culture war. That's been done to death. We're talking about changing the culture as a whole. If you're somebody who has ideas about comic books, that wants to write stories or to do art, you need to do that. Don't give it to Marvel or DC or maybe not even some of the more larger independent publishers. Make it. Make that. Bring back the heroism. Bring back the morality. Bring back the characters that matter. There are other forms of entertainment and media out there that are doing it now. A good chunk of them come from, well, surprising no one, Japan. My Hero Academia is a fantastic book that understands heroism. We need to do that. We need to do that. Here, in this country, we need to make stories that herald and focus on heroism, on doing good and being moral and being just. Not these pathetic attempts at politics, horrible wastes of time with social commentaries. It's not what we need. What people need are heroes. That's what they want. They want to believe in somebody that can do the right thing, that can be good. And that's kind of what we need right now. We need to find those characters. We need to bring them out into the light if we find them, whether that be in other forms of entertainment. We need characters like them. We need characters like Doc Savage, basically is what I'm saying. We need characters like the Shadow. We need to bring characters like those into the forefront. We need to make characters that not only people can relate with, but can also be heroes that cannot be easily corrupted by stupid writing. I don't know if I, missed any other points and whatnot that I wanted to bring out. I apologize if I brought out points and didn't elaborate on them. Sorry, I'm kind of all over the place, but I just wanted to do this video because I thought it was kind of important and necessary to kind of discuss comic books in this fashion, because that's something else that I'm starting to slowly work on myself. I'm trying to start to do more writing and trying to work on that as a skill and trying to maybe publish something in the future. I don't know when that will be or when that will happen, but understand that I'm trying to work towards that goal. Once it happens, obviously, I'll let you guys know. But as it stands right now, I think that we need to focus more on that. We need to put a spotlight on what actual heroism is. If you're going to talk about comics from Marvel and DC, focus on those. That's what I'd recommend. Focus on the good stories, not the current stuff. Though there may still be some good books out there. I don't really know because I don't care enough to know. But just, go out of your way, to find other characters. Put spotlights on that stuff, If you guys want me to, maybe I'll do more reviews and more discussions on some more current independent comic books. Maybe we'll do more Common America stuff because that was kind of fun and it got good traction on the channel, so that was good. So maybe we'll do that. I don't know, but like I said, we got to do what we think is right, and that's kind of where I'm at. I don't think comic books are in a good state right now, and the comics from Marvel and DC shouldn't be supported. People should back out of it now because it's not going to get any better. There were times when I thought that it would get better, that, things would change, but clearly I was mistaken. because it hasn't changed. And it probably never will. At least not until someone has an epiphany over there, because it ain't happening now. Anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed my video, my very long rant as to why I'm giving up on modern Marvel and DC Comics. I hope everybody enjoyed it. So if you did, please, give me a like, shoot me a comment, subscribe if you're new. I'd greatly appreciate it. Oh, quick side note and tangent. I also now have an affiliate link to a new service. Or not a new service, but I recently I got partnered with an affiliate program. I am now affiliated with HobbyLink Japan. If you're interested in Japanese entertainment and culture, toys, that kind of stuff, collectibles and whatnot, figures, whatever, model kits, which, I'm a big fan of model kits of giant robots. There's a link I will put in the description. If you click that link and you purchase something from there, I'll get a little bit of the profits myself, which will probably greatly help the channel. So if you're willing to do that, I would greatly appreciate it. Check it out. It would help me out tremendously. And of course, as always, do not forget to raise your nerd flags high. And I'll see you next time. Nightwolf is out.